Chapter 20. And God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and the fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing steadfast love to thousands of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter, your male servant or your female servant, or your livestock, or the sojourner who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male servant, or his female servant, or his ox, or his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's. Now when all the people saw the thunder and the flashes of lightning and the sound of the trumpet and the mountain smoking, the people were afraid and trembled, and they stood far off and said to Moses, You speak to us, and we will listen, but do not let God speak to us, lest we die. Moses said to the people, Do not fear, for God has come to test you, that the fear of him may be before you, that you may not sin. The people stood far off, while Moses drew near to the thick darkness where God was. And the Lord said to Moses, Thus you shall say to the people of Israel, You have seen for yourselves that I have talked with you from heaven. You shall not make gods of silver to be with me, nor shall you make for yourselves gods of gold. An altar of earth you shall make for me, and sacrifice on it your burnt offerings and your peace offerings, your sheep and your oxen. In every place where I cause my name to be remembered, I will come to you and bless you. If you make me an altar of stone, you shall not build it of hewn stones. For if you wield your tool on it, you profane it. And you shall not go up by steps to my altar, that your nakedness be not exposed on it. Chapter 23. Then the whole company of them arose and brought him before Pilate. And they began to accuse him, saying, We found this man misleading our nation and forbidding us to give tribute to Caesar, and saying that he himself is Christ, a king. And Pilate asked him, Are you the king of the Jews? And he answered him, You have said so. Then Pilate said to the chief priests and the crowds, I find no guilt in this man. But they were urgent, saying, He stirs up the people, teaching throughout all Judea, from Galilee even to this place. When Pilate heard this, he asked whether the man was a Galilean. And when he learned that he belonged to Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him over to Herod, who was himself in Jerusalem at that time. When Herod saw Jesus, he was very glad, for he had long desired to see him, because he'd heard about him, and he was hoping to see some sign done by him. So he questioned him at some length, but he made no answer. The chief priests and the scribes stood by, vehemently accusing him. And Herod with his soldiers treated him with contempt and mocked him. Then, arraying him in splendid clothing, he sent him back to Pilate. And Herod and Pilate became friends with each other that very day. For before this, they had been at enmity with each other. Pilate then called together the chief priests and the rulers and the people, and said to them, You brought me this man as one who was misleading the people. And after examining him before you, behold, I did not find this man guilty of any of your charges against him. Neither did Herod, for he sent him back to us. Look, nothing deserving death has been done by him. I will therefore punish and release him." But they all cried out together, "Away with this man and release to us Barabbas," a man who had been thrown into prison for an insurrection started in the city and for murder. Pilate addressed them once more, desiring to release Jesus. But they kept shouting, "Crucify, crucify him." A third time he said to them, "Why, what evil has he done? I have found in him no guilt deserving death. I will therefore punish and release him." But they were urgent, demanding with loud cries that he should be crucified, and their voices prevailed. So Pilate decided that their demand should be granted. He released the man who had been thrown into prison for insurrection and murder, for whom they asked. But he delivered Jesus over to their will. And as they led him away, they seized one Simon of Cyrene, who was coming in from the country, and laid on him the cross to carry it behind Jesus. And there followed him a great multitude of the people and of women who were mourning and lamenting for him. But turning to them, Jesus said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For behold, the days are coming when they will say, 'Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bore, and the breasts that never nursed.' Then they will begin to say to the mountains, 'Fall on us,' and to the hills, 'Cover us.' For if they do these things when the wood is green, what will happen when it is dry?" 2 others who were criminals were led away to be put to death with him. And when they came to the place that is called the Skull, there they crucified him, and the criminals, one on his right and one on his left. And Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And they cast lots to divide his garments. And the people stood by watching. But the rulers scoffed at him, saying, "He saved others, let him save himself, if he is the Christ of God, his chosen one." The soldiers also mocked him, coming up and offering him sour wine, and saying, "If you're the king of the Jews, save yourself." There was also an inscription over him, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals who were hanged railed at him, saying, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other rebuked him, saying, "Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we are receiving the due reward of our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong." And he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." Then Jesus said to him, "Truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise." It was now about the 6th hour, and there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour, while the sun's light failed. And the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Then Jesus, calling out with a loud voice, said, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." And having said this, he breathed his last. Now when the centurion saw what had taken place, he praised God, saying, "Certainly this man was innocent." And all the crowds that had assembled for this spectacle, when they saw what had taken place, returned home, beating their breasts. And all his acquaintances and the women who had followed him from Galilee stood at a distance, watching these things. Now there was a man named Joseph from the Jewish town of Arimathea. He was a member of the council, a good and righteous man, who had not consented to their decision and action, and he was looking for the kingdom of God. This man went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then he took it down and wrapped it in a linen shroud, and laid him in a tomb cut in stone, where no one had ever yet been laid. It was the day of preparation, and the Sabbath was beginning. The women who had come with him from Galilee followed and saw the tomb and how his body was laid. Then they returned and prepared spices and ointments. On the Sabbath they rested according to the commandment. Chapter 38. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, "Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Dress for action like a man. I will question you, and you make it known to me. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? On what were its bases sunk, or who laid its cornerstone, when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy? Or who shut in the sea with doors when it burst out from the womb, when I made clouds its garment and thick darkness its swaddling band, and prescribed limits for it, and set bars and doors, and said, Thus far shall you come and no farther, and here shall your proud waves be stayed? Have you commanded the morning since your days began, and caused the dawn to know its place, that it might take hold of the skirts of the earth, and the wicked be shaken out of it? It is changed like clay under the seal, and its features stand out like a garment. From the wicked their light is withheld, and their uplifted arm is broken. Have you entered into the springs of the sea, or walked in the recesses of the deep? Have the gates of death been revealed to you? Or have you seen the gates of deep darkness? Have you comprehended the expanse of the earth? Declare if you know all this. Where is the way to the dwelling of light, and where is the place of darkness, that you may take it to its territory, and that you may discern the paths to its home? You know, for you were born then, and the number of your days is great. Have you entered the storehouses of the snow? Or have you seen the storehouses of the hail, which I have reserved for the time of trouble, for the day of battle and war? What is the way to the place where the light is distributed, or where the east wind is scattered upon the earth? Who has cleft a channel for the torrents of rain, and a way for the thunderbolt, to bring rain on a land where no man is, on the desert in which there is no man, to satisfy the waste and desolate land, and to make the ground sprout with grass? Has the rain a father, or who has begotten the drops of dew? From whose womb did the ice come forth, and who has given birth to the frost of heaven? The waters become hard like stone, and the face of the deep is frozen. Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades, or loose the cords of Orion? Can you lead forth the Mazzaroth in their season, or can you guide the bear with its children? Do you know the ordinances of the heavens? Can you establish their rule on the earth? Can you lift up your voice to the clouds, that a flood of waters may cover you? Can you send forth lightnings, that they may go and say to you, Here we are? Who has put wisdom in the inward parts, or given understanding to the mind? Who can number the clouds by wisdom, or who can tilt the waterskins of the heavens, when the dust runs into a mass and the clods stick fast together? Can you hunt the prey for the lion, or satisfy the appetite of the young lions when they crouch in their dens, or lie in wait in their thicket? Who provides for the raven its prey, when its young ones cry to God for help, and wander about for lack of food? Chapter 8. We want you to know, brothers, about the grace of God that has been given among the churches of Macedonia. For in a severe test of affliction, their abundance of joy and their extreme poverty have overflowed in a wealth of generosity on their part. For they gave according to their means, as I can testify, and beyond their means, of their own accord, begging us earnestly for the favor of taking part in the relief of the saints. And this not as we expected, but they gave themselves first to the Lord, and then by the will of God to us. Accordingly, we urged Titus that as he had started, so he should complete among you this act of grace. But as you excel in everything, in faith, in speech, in knowledge, in all earnestness, and in our love for you, see that you excel in this act of grace also. I say this not as a command, but to prove by the earnestness of others that your love also is genuine. For you know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, that though he was rich, yet for your sake he became poor, so that you by his poverty might become rich. And in this matter I give my judgment. This benefits you, who a year ago started not only to do this work, but also to desire to do it. So now finish doing it as well, so that your readiness in desiring it may be matched by your completing it out of what you have. For if the readiness is there, it is acceptable according to what a person has, not according to what he does not have. For I do not mean that others should be eased and you burdened, but that, as a matter of fairness, your abundance at the present time should supply their need, so that their abundance may supply your need, that there may be fairness. As it is written, whoever gathered much had nothing left over, and whoever gathered little had no lack. But thanks be to God, who put into the heart of Titus the same earnest care I have for you. For he not only accepted our appeal, but being himself very earnest, he is going to you of his own accord. With him we are sending the brother who is famous among all the churches for his preaching of the gospel. And not only that, but he has been appointed by the churches to travel with us as we carry out this act of grace that is being ministered by us, for the glory of the Lord himself and to show our goodwill. We take this course so that no one should blame us about this generous gift that is being administered by us. For we aim at what is honorable, not only in the Lord's sight, but also in the sight of man. And with them we are sending our brother, whom we have often tested and found earnest in many matters, but who is now more earnest than ever because of his great confidence in you. As for Titus, he is my partner and fellow worker for your benefit. And as for our brothers, they are messengers of the churches, the glory of Christ. So give proof before the churches of your love and of our boasting about you to these men.
The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Father, your word is precious and life-giving. May we receive that life directly from you this day in your name. Amen. Hello. Let me go in order of appearance by saying hello to you all. If you're in the comment section, you see that somebody came in an hour and a half early. Hugh Salter. How are things back home in Arizona? So that was a comment on Sweet Home Maricopa, obviously. Because we put up these notices that the live show is coming up, some people jump in and comment before the show comes on, and then they disappear. And so I doubt Hugh is still here, but hi, Hugh, if you are. All right. Hello, Happy Bergie. Good to see you. Jacqueline, AC Cruz, Lost in Time Industries. Good morning. Carrie Jumper, good to see you. And Tom, did I say hi to you, Tom? Happy Bergie? Yes. Sorry. Mitch, here, let's put that up there. Mitch Nelson, good day, everybody. Praise be to God. Yes, it's CV day over on This Way Network. So afterwards, we'll be jumping over and talking to Ben. Lucas, good to have you. Anybody else? Let's see, Jacqueline, I did say hi. All right. And I do read the comments, and so sometimes I want to comment on the comments, but we'll get to that. Real quick about Job, this chapter, Job 38, and Job is 42 chapters, if I'm not mistaken, and so we'll catch the very end of Job next on Monday or Tuesday. I'm not doing the math in my head. So what is the point of Job? What is kind of the climax, and this just kind of hit me, the beginning of Job, we have the narrative from heaven, like God revealed to the author of Job that this whole scenario for Job began in the heavenlies, where Satan is, right? Satan is in the heavens, wandering to and fro. And when he's bound in the heavens, right? In the heavenly realm, right? He's not a physical being. So the heavens is the non-physical. And then we have these horrible things happen to Job. He loses everything, everything of value. His wife remains, and his friends remain. And his friends come, and early on, and I heard a preacher say this one time, and it stuck with me. The greatest advice or counsel, or the greatest thing that Job's friends did for him in his time of suffering was the first 7 days when they said nothing. Right? The greatest comfort, the greatest role that you can play for a friend of yours who's suffering is to just be in their presence, be with them, be there, be available. And your words are secondary. And so we have then chapters, 25 chapters of just Job's friends saying stuff and articulating their understanding of God and accusing Job of wrongdoing. And this came upon you because you deserve it. You must have, like, all these different theories, right? They theorize in Job's presence. And that's, they speak some truths about God, but then, so what's the climax? Right here in chapter Job 38. Go there real quick. Just the very beginning. Here's the climax. It is, and then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind. So God speaks to Job directly, and this whole chapter, it's all questions. It's rhetoric. It's like the here's the Lord applying the Socratic method. What's the Socratic method? Asking your students questions and seeing if they come up with the right answers. And God is asking all these rhetorical questions. Who is it? Who is it? Who does all these things? Who knows where the snow comes from and where light resides before it shines, right? Like these incredible questions. And it's obvious, right? The answers are obvious. You don't even need to answer because it's God speaking. It's like, who are you compared to me? And so this is the climax. And the whole point of Job is everything can go one way or other. You can be uber wealthy and have everything provided for you, or you can have everything taken away from you and be destitute and desolate. And God doesn't change. And there is eternity ahead. And these are all temporary. What you're going through is all temporary, right? And so I just want to point that out. All right. Now, the 10 Commandments in Exodus 20, and there's another place later on that it's repeated. I forget where, but the 10 Commandments are here, and they're in one other place in the Old Testament, in the Torah. And I learned this recently, and maybe some of you can verify this for me, but I'm not sure about this. But Catholics' 10 Commandments are slightly different. I heard a teaching on it on a Catholic radio station, and that person was actually clarifying the difference, and forgive me for not remembering specifically, but for us, there's the first 4 and the final 6, right? The first 4 commandments are toward God, your relationship with God, and the last 6 are your relationship with everyone else, with humankind. But I think the Catholics break out, or they combined, I think maybe the first 2 commandments that we would consider commandment 1 and commandment 2, and they separate the last commandment that we would consider just the 10th commandment, and they would make it 9 and 10. And that's the last one is not coveting your neighbor's house. And then they separate the wife or something like that. I'm not sure exactly what the separation is. Maybe some of you are former Catholics and understand this and know this, but I thought that was interesting. It's neither here nor there. I'm just pointing that out. The Catholics have 10 commandments and the Protestants have 10 commandments, but there's a slight variation. It's the same commandments. But they're split up differently. And also keep in mind these numbers here. Number 13, you shall not murder. The verses and chapters were not there in the original. This is all just listed out. So can be divided differently for different. All right. That's another thing I want to say about this chapter of Exodus is in the previous chapter, chapter 19, is when the thunder and lightning and it's God speaking in the hearing of all the leadership and all the elders, and everybody's freaked out. And this is a one-off. This isn't something that happens over and over again. This is the first time, like Moses has had this encounter with God. Moses has stood before the burning bush. Moses has this access across the threshold into eternity, into the eternal throne. Moses and God are friends, or they communicate regularly, like every day, like constantly, it seems. Yet this is the first time the masses are having this experience, right? Before that, they're all just listening to Moses. They saw incredible things. They saw the plagues. They saw the parting of the Red Sea. They saw the food now being provided every morning and the water flowing from the rock. They saw all these things, but they haven't heard the voice of God. They haven't. And so thunder, lightning, smoke, a cloud, and it's loud, really loud, like trumpet blasting loud, and it's freaking them out. Okay, Lost in Time Ministries. Tomorrow's or Monday, because we won't be here tomorrow. right, good. So this is a momentous event. It's like, so in chapter 19, we see all that. And then he utters these 10 commandments in all their hearing. And then more thunder and lightning in the end of the chapter. And people stood far off while Moses drew near to the thick darkness where God was. Now there's thunders and lightning, yet it's dark and it's loud. And so Moses dares to go into the thick darkness, and everybody else is like, no. And they're like, you be the representative, Moses. You go do your thing, and we'll go back. And all right. Spent too much on that time on that. I'm going to just focus on Jesus hanging on the cross with these two guys next to him. So there are some people that think everybody is going to be in heaven, that every soul is immortal. All right. So there are a couple of different doctrines here. And so there's one doctrine that it's called the universalism. It's that every human that God created is going to live forever and will be in heaven forever. And I think that's just pretty flat out heresy. And I think this kind of points to that. There's one guy hanging on one side of Jesus saying, he did nothing wrong. This guy's good. I've heard about him in remember me when you're in the kingdom. And the other guy's like, yeah, you save yourself. Can't you save us? Bring us down. He's just thinking about himself. Right. And so that's the dividing line, right? Jesus hanging right in between them. Jesus is the dividing line. It's your opinion of Jesus that determines if you're going to be with him in heaven forever. And then there's another notion that I don't want to address here, but there's the notion that even the damned are immortal forever in hell. And then there's the other doctrine that it's extinguished, that the soul is extinguished and they don't persist forever in torment. Right. And I'm undecided on that. And I at some point will know the truth, maybe before God tells, before the end. But that's one where I'm ambivalent, not ambivalent. I'm agnostic, right? It's like, okay, all right, but I don't waste time just trying to articulate that. Okay. So here you have, and I like that somebody in the comments, was it Jacqueline? The criminal, let's put that up, who was saved only believed, he never got baptized. And so there are some like, are you saved without baptism? Baptism is a symbol. Baptism is identification. Baptism is a sacrament that we are to subject ourselves to. But it's not salvific. It's belief in Jesus Christ, in the atoning work of Christ, that is salvific. And so here's this guy hanging on the cross, and Jesus says to him, this day you will be with me. So he looks at his watch. No, just kidding. In a few short hours, we're going to be reunited. We're going to be together again. And man, to be that guy hanging on the cross, like he's gone through whatever trial he's gone through. He knows he's guilty. Like, and so maybe it was in a moment of weakness. Maybe it was in a drunken rage he murdered somebody. Right? When you make rash decisions at the wrong time, when you're heightened emotions and you do something that will affect you for the rest of your life. That's what this guy's like, I deserve this. And he says, you and I both deserve this. They're not, what's the joke? You go into prison. Everybody says, I'm innocent in prison. It's not a joke, but these guys acknowledge they were deserving of this punishment. And here's a guy hanging on the cross. Before he has this discussion with Jesus, he's like, I'm about to die. It's over for me. It's the blackness of eternity he faces. It's like, wait, this guy over here, he didn't do anything. And they have a discussion, and Jesus evangelizes him. Like, Jesus saves the guy right then and there. And that guy goes from hanging on a cross in utter pain, goes from the darkness of eternity and confusion and fear to joy forevermore. He's like, you're going to be with me today. And he's like, wait, how? There's something beyond this. I continue. Just, it's amazing. Jesus is very focused at all times. He knew exactly what was going on. He's suffering physically in pain, but he's like, yeah, this has to happen. This happened. Don't worry. You'll be with me today. This temporary affliction is almost gone. All right, jump over to This Way Network.